Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast, your listen-in how-to guide to the Australian financial and real estate market. I'm your host, Jo, and on today's show, I have a very special guest, Cara Julian from Brava Finance. Cara, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Jo. It was a lovely, warm welcome. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Of course, no, it's so great to talk to you because I love your story. Just to give a bit of background without giving the whole episode away, but Cara's actually written a book, so she's a published author. She has done some great work, and I love her story about how she got into finance and how she got into the mortgage brokering industry. So this is a topic that I'm so excited to talk to you about because it leads so nicely into my first question, which I am going to get started with right now. And it's tell everyone what led you to become a mortgage broker and what do you find the most rewarding about your job?
Thanks, Jo. Well, I suppose it starts a while back when I grew up in an era where men looked after the finances in a family and relationships. Um, so I was pretty rubbish myself at managing my finances through all of my teens, 20s. And I got married, gave all the financial responsibility to my husband. That's, I suppose, naturally what I did because that's what I was brought up with, um, or conditioned to do. That relationship unfortunately didn't survive, but it was not bad. Didn't have any children. I was still young. There was no debt, so went on my merry way of, didn't invest in any financial education, just carried on. And then entered another relationship and we had a daughter together. So I was a stay-at-home mum for quite some time. Um, he was responsible for everything financially, so still didn't find necessary to educate myself.
Mm.
I had a marketing business that didn't survive COVID. So when we separated, I had no money, I had no financial knowledge or confidence, and I felt really financially vulnerable because I had the
Mm.
weight of financial security or ensuring a financially secure future for not just me, but also for my daughter.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
so it was a really awful position to be in. And I stayed in that position for much longer than I needed to because I couldn't see any way out. I didn't even know how to put one foot in front of the other. Then we had a family friend that had a mortgage broking business, and he said one day, "You should train to be a mortgage broker. I think you'd do a really good job." So I did, knowing that it would tick two really important boxes for me. One, improving my financial knowledge, and also for building that financially secure future that was necessary. So yeah, I retrained to become a mortgage broker and wish I had done it a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Your question, what do I find most rewarding? It's been able to, share my story and make it a part of someone else's survival guide and having someone out there that somebody in a similar situation can resonate with, and feel supported and guided into helping rewrite their financial story and build their own financially secure future. So, I'm speaking to mostly women, but also men. It's not just
Mm.
women, but every day and helping them. And then, just through that process and for them seeing that they can actually either purchase a property now or put a plan in place to look at purchasing, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, three
Yeah.
years, just really helps with the mindset and that confidence. So I find, yeah, that the most rewarding for sure.
And I think, what you've said, your story, like I said, when we first caught up and you told me that, I thought, what a great motivator. Like, you've been in that same position that a lot of, people who are, whether they're buying a home or trying to manage their finances, if they've never done it before, it's so overwhelming and it's so your money habits do come a lot, our knowledge and the way we structure ourselves comes from our parents, right? So the behavior we learn from them. And if that's, like you said, in your era, relying on, the man or the husband or just any second person in a partnership to do the financing, you don't, because you've typically never looked after it. When the relationship breaks down, yeah, it's debilitating. So I think what a great story to help other people. You've been in their exact shoes and known that helplessness and that feeling of overwhelm, that you can now pull them out of it and say, hey, I did it. I'm doing it for a living now. I can help you become more like me. And you don't have to necessarily be a broker, but you can be like their spirit guide through this journey, which I think is awesome. So
Thanks, Joe.
yeah, no, kudos to you. And, you know, I guess my next question is more around, you know, can you recall a time where you have helped a client necessarily overcome like some sort of financial challenge, like, you know, without naming names, of course?
I think for me, I mean, just recently, um, the financial challenge probably comes more in the mindset and the lack of confidence. And so, you know, I had a customer that she doesn't even know why she reached out one day. It was she'd seen me on Instagram and just thought just something inside her. I think she'd seen my book that I'd written, um, and reached out and said, "Look, I'm not even sure you can help, but this is my situation. Um, and I'm so stressed and so worried. You know, I have a young kids to look after, recently divorced. Um, can you help?" And so we went through her story, looked at her finances, and the first, I suppose, you know, one of the most important steps and the most important steps I did was just start with the basic budget. And so
Mm.
I have a spreadsheet. It's really simple, just entering in all of your expenses and your income and looking at, you know, ways that you can help reduce your expenses and even increase your income. So it's just that first wee step made her feel like she could then take another step and another step. Um, so we went through that, and then we had a look at her financial position, and we worked out a plan so that I think it was in 11 months time, because determined how much she could save per month and what she already had in the bank. She actually could purchase a property.
That's
Um,
amazing.
so just the joy and you know, she said that it just feels like, oh, all this weight has come off my shoulders. Um, that was really special. So it's not just how a mortgage broker can help you now, it's putting that plan in place, um, to to help with that mindset and that confidence that is so necessary and important to helping build that financial future.
That's a great story, you know, all from a reach out of I don't know what to do, I'm lost, to 11 months later being in a position to find a property. I think that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. What a yeah, I love stories like that because it always starts from, you know, like you said, that place of I don't know what to do, who helps me. She's obviously come across your details on Instagram, you know, wherever she's come from and said, I've looked at all this sounds like I need to talk to you. And I think for all of those listening at the moment or tuning into this episode, feeling the same and going, that's me right now, um, know that there is a way forward, right? Because this is what Cara's talking about. It's often the steps don't start straight from, I have a deposit, now what? You know, for some people, yes, you've great work for being able to save and be in a position to say, hey, I now need a broker because I'm buying a house. But sometimes these relationships form over 12 months prior, you know, of I don't know what to do. I have finance, I have something, or maybe I have nothing and I don't know how to get there. You just need to have a conversation and it can change
Exactly.
everything.
And the learnings, I suppose, or you know, a mortgage broker can help you understand, that you may not even need a 20% deposit to buy a property. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you may be able to, be eligible under the government's, family guarantee scheme. You could be one of an essential services worker or a medico where lots of banks will, offer LMI waivers, or even, you know, a couple of times recently, we have actually done a property purchase with paying LMI, which is lender's mortgage insurance, helps the lender, not the
Yeah,
borrower, and the borrower
that's
does
right.
pay for it. But and you can capitalize that, meaning add it on top of the loan just to get into the property market. So it's not black and white, and I think that's probably the key is reaching out and getting an understanding.
And I think that ties in nicely to my next question. It's talking about your service. So what does the service kind of look like? You know, whether I know you've mentioned like that one user, you know, one customer of yours that came in from a situation, but typically if someone was, you know, somewhat deposit ready and they wanted to buy a property, what does the service look like for you on that side of things? How do you walk the customer through that journey?
So what I actually have started doing now that I've written my book, why you should date your bank, not marry them. So it's basically, a guide to helping you understand the mortgage build and building financial confidence. So for me, I post that straight out to the customer. So then they can sort of start reading and understanding the process along with the support and education that I give along the way. But we start off with a really involved fact find, discovery call, whatever you'd like to call it. And it's just finding out all of the information so that as a mortgage broker, then I can look at a strategy or a solution for you. And then at that stage, it's determined whether we walk them through the financial foundations program, which I've developed as well, just to help build that knowledge and confidence to
Mm.
get them to a position where they're feeling in control. Um, and then it's from all that information at the start, it's looking at income and expenses and deposit and any debt. And so we would look at, first of all, the serviceability. So whenever you purchase a property, it's broken into two parts. One is serviceability and the second is deposit. So we'll look at a servicing calculator, look at the income, taking away any expenses and liability repayments, etc., and determine the maximum loan that the bank would be willing to offer, I suppose. Once we have that, we look at what's called a funding position. We take that loan amount, looking at their deposit, and then we can look at a max purchase price. And so we do all of that just so that the customer's aware of a budget, I suppose they can
Mm.
look at using. If they're not ready now, it's through that the fact find and also financial foundations program that we can determine a plan to put in place. So that's all done before we go into the great detail of getting all of the rest of the information.
Right.
Just it's not something we don't want to, I suppose, waste anyone's time.
Yeah.
We do all of that first, and then if the customer is comfortable to move forward, and if they're in a position, then we look at a pre-approval loan application. So that's the same as any loan application. All the same steps need to be followed. But we have, through the aggregator that I work with, we have a customer client center, which is a link to it, and it's got all the information that's required. Shows you where you can upload the documentation, pay slips, ID, bank statements, etc. Also, there's a questionnaire to fill out. So, as a mortgage broker, we are obligated to work under best interest duty. So
Yeah.
it's making sure that any loan recommendation that we make is within the customer's best interest, which is why we spend so much time on the fact find and the questionnaire. Whereas if you go direct to a lender or a bank, they're not obligated to work under that. So
Yeah,
you
because
go
they're
to a
selling
bank,
their products.
exactly, and you have to fit in, with what they have to offer. I liken it to if you need to buy a new outfit for an event and you go to a big shopping centre, like in Melbourne here, Chadstone Shopping Centre, and you go to one shop and that's it.
Mm.
You have to find something of their range that fits with you. But using a mortgage broker in this analogy is like using a personal stylist. So they understand the brief, they understand all of the shops and what they can offer, and they'll walk you around and you can try the different clothes on at the different shops until you find something that is within your best interests.
I love
Um,
a fashion analogy.
So and then so I help with all of that gathering of the information and the checks and balances, prepare the loan application. I always work really closely with the bank or the lender's business development manager, who's like the go-between the bank and the mortgage broker,
Mm.
just to make sure that that fits within the credit policy once we've had the chance to talk through all of the lender and products with the customer and they've chosen one, so that it's a strong application when it's submitted. When it gets submitted, the assessor takes a look at it and just makes sure that all the boxes are ticked, particularly conforming to credit policy. And then if everything's fine, they'll offer a pre-approval. And that's although it's not 100%,
Mm.
it is, I suppose, the the best that you can do when you're going out to find a property to feel reassured that the bank is mostly satisfied with your application, and it helps obviously then, as you would know, um, helping with negotiations and knowing that that pre-approval was in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I always stand by pre-approval. Often, when I'm talking to, clients that looking to buy, right, as a background in buyers advocacy or real estate, the first question I'll always say is, have you got your pre-approval sorted out? And if you don't, I encourage you to go and get it because it gives you so much power in your negotiations. And I think these days it's a lot more commonly known to go and get a pre-approval, whether it's directly through your bank or a broker. A lot more customers I find are a bit more savvier than they used to be. In the past, it was often, well, I just want to buy a house. I'm going to go look at the house. And then you kind of find out the steps after. But
Yeah.
to anyone listening, get a pre-approval first. It's always going to be in your best interest, number one, because you want to buy with confidence. The last thing you want is to walk into an inspection, love the property, place an offer subject to finance, and then visit a mortgage broker to tell you you can't afford that property. Now, if the owners have accepted that offer, you're in a bit of a difficult position. So, because technically, if your finance fails, you don't buy the property, but it's very, it sucks for you as well because you have to go through those emotions of, oh, I've found the right home. Now I don't have enough money. Now the finance has failed and you kind of go back to square one. Whereas if you know what you can afford straight away before you enter this journey, you're going to have a better experience overall because then you're not buying property that's way above your budget, or in the wrong location. You're buying in a place that's actually suitable for your budget. You know your limits and you can buy a bit more confidently. And then, like I guess with the pre-approval, Cara, on your side, pre-approval has 90 days, is that right? Until it lapses. So it's valid for 90 days. So provided you find a property within 90 days, that
Correct.
application still stands. But have you got
Correct.
any tips or advice for someone like in that, let's say they have been on the market for, 60 days and they still haven't found a property there. And this happens, I think, a fair bit where pre-approval comes through, they haven't found a property within that time, then it lapses, they have to reapply. What's one of the biggest, I guess, tips that you can give someone through that 3-month period? Do they need to keep their transactions or the way they kind of have their finances in place the same? Because then I'm imagining that you have to reapply again. And if your situation's different, so to give a clear example, if they quit their job, if their partner quits their job, if they're buying with 2 people, or if they start having a very expensive habit that's taking up a lot of funding in their transactions, are these things that, buyers need to be mindful of?
100%, Joe. And actually, it's really important to continue that right up until settlement. So,
Right.
you know, even if you've got your pre-approval, you've found a property, and you're just waiting for the property to settle. If you have any change in financial circumstances, if you purchase, a new car and you've now got a debt against that, or if one-off spending, like if you go on holiday, that's a different story. But if you quit your job, all of those are actually reason for the bank right up until settlement to actually pull that loan.
Wow. Yeah. So this is exactly why I wanted to confirm that question with you, because I've always thought if you get that pre-approval, yeah, you should be keeping up with your circumstances. Because I have heard there's even clients I've dealt with, they've changed jobs. And I'm like, oh, okay. How does the change of job scenario work? Because obviously you don't want to force people to stay in a job if they're
Yeah.
not having a good time, and that's not for them anymore. But how do you navigate that with a bank? Have you ever encountered that scenario?
Yeah, I have actually just recently, um, where the customer called and said, "Yep, so it's really happy in this job. I've got a new one. I think there was like 4 days in between, ending one job and starting another. It was in the same industry in a similar role. So most of the time, and I say most of the time, I can't speak for all
Hmm.
lenders, but that will be accepted and they will just require a new employment contract and most commonly the first payslip. It
Okay,
does
that's good.
add, a bit of extra stress. So, if it is something you can hold off on, great. But absolutely, for mental health reasons alone, if you need to
Hmm.
change the job, I think, if you were to leave if it was an extra long settlement and it was to be a gap of greater than a month between employment, sometimes that can add a bit of an issue as well.
Yeah, no,
So I suppose
that's really good to know.
that,
So,
also with pre-approval, it's my advice is to ensure that the pre-approval is fully assessed. So some lenders will just do a digital approval where it's just basically there's not an assessor has not looked at it. It's just come in and the a few boxes are ticked. And once then you put an offer on a house and you receive that signed contract to sale, that's when the assessor looks in it. So it just adds a little bit of extra stress. And so if you've got a bank that does a fully assessed pre-approval, it means that the assessors look through it and they're, mostly satisfied is the word for a pre-approval. It increases your chances of it moving forward to full approval.
no, that's excellent. And I think that I love this conversation because it just opens up a discussion. I think that sometimes like finances can be a little bit taboo in the past. And like we're all starting to open up as, this new generation's coming through. We're all open to talking about things. So it's so important to have these discussions. And I like, that we had an example of those changing job circumstances because not everyone, I know myself, I've had jobs in the past where I'm like, oh my God, I hate this job. And I'm thinking, Jesus, if I had to stick out a job, wouldn't be happy about it. But it's like catch 22, I want a property, but I don't want to stay here. So it's good to know that if you do decide that's the step you need to take, you can do it as long as there's, reasonable actions you take to find another job and replace that income and at least have a pay slip under your belt. So there's ways to continue on. You don't have to feel like you have to suffer. And
Exactly.
we're coming to the end of our time. I'm loving this discussion, Cara. Thank you so much once again for being here. I think my final question to you is, do you have any, like, say that our listeners today, they're mostly home buyers, they're sitting here listening to this episode and, they're not sure of what to do next. Maybe they've got pre-approval, maybe they don't have pre-approval, they need advice or guidance. What's your best tip for a home buyer that's on the property market and isn't sure about their finances right now?
Look, obviously, I'm going to say reach out to a mortgage broker. And it's not just because I'm a mortgage broker, it's because this is our job. This is what we do day in and day out. For me, I have access to 50 different lenders. So everyone has such a unique situation. And finding a lender that really does fit, their credit policy really fits within your situation. But also, just any questions and having that ability to pick up a phone and call a broker instead of picking up a phone and trying to call a bank. That's hard work these days, isn't it? Just
Yeah.
even for the most simple questions. But also building your own financial knowledge is so important. Even if you're in a relationship, I think it's important to understand your financial position. And, my website, I have heaps of blogs and information, reach out. I've got a book I can send you. That's not a problem at all. Or just Google, and just start to sort of build your own knowledge and base of knowledge as well. Um, but yeah, I think definitely reaching out to a mortgage broker is a good idea.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Cara. Like I said, for anyone listening today, definitely reach out to Cara. She's available through the Abodey app as well for Brava Finance. And her book, we will be putting it up on our website for you guys to access. I've read the book personally just this weekend and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it opened up my mind because I am guilty. My partner, she looks after all our finances. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah. If I didn't do the real estate side of things for my role, that opened up processes and understanding of like the steps and how to be more independent of it. It's true. Like, even though you just never know what could happen in the world in relationships, but I am definitely guilty of I don't manage the finances in my household. I've got enough finances to manage on the business.
That's
But
totally understandable. Actually, just a point to add to that is building a team of professionals around you
mm,
um, is such a good idea. You know, if you're going to buy a home and it's your first time or you just want that extra support, having a team of support. So that might be, a buyer's agent,
mm.
okay, an accountant, maybe a financial planner, a conveyancer, a mortgage broker, just helping support and guide you along the journey. And if you've got each one of those areas covered, you know, most likely your experience and end result are going to reflect that, having a group of people that's their job. That's what they do day in, day out. So I think that's really important, isn't it? Isn't that right,
Oh,
Joe?
100%. And I'm probably biased because that's exactly what we've built into the app. This is why we've brought these professionals in, why we're interviewing the pros for our home buyers, is because we need you to understand there is a professional that does this every day, and not just one customer a day. It's multiple customers a day. It's multiple people a day. Buyers advocates, like we have a couple of on our books who have bought over 600 properties each in their time of being a broker, a buyer's agent. It's the same sort of numbers for mortgage brokers. Like, they do it every day. For everyday people, even like myself, I'm not buying property for myself every day. In our lifetime, I think the average says we're going to buy maybe 3 properties, 4 properties, if you're not investing, like as in switching from your first home, second home, maybe your final home. So the spacing between those years can be anywhere between 5 to 7, and then all the way up to 10, 15, 20 years later. And those transitions, you need support. So do get in touch with the professionals like Cara, like our other providers on the platform. Surround yourself with a team and get the support you need, because these guys are doing it every day. So you can have your questions answered, you can feel secure, you know exactly how to move forward in the transaction. And often you won't be stuck in this loop that a lot of home buyers are stuck in at the moment, where they wait 6 to 9 months to purchase because they're entering the market, they're not sure where to go, what to do. Whereas these are where professionals lift you up and say, this is all you need to do for me. And then they work together, to help you be successful in your home purchase journey. So important. Cara, I have to thank you multiple times. I just really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we could talk forever, but thank you so much for being here once again.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. I just loved being a part of this.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, for all of you guys listening out there, you're either tuning in on the Abodey app or maybe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can always catch up on this episode later in the same places. But if you have any questions, you can reach out to Cara through the Abodey app or online. And thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we look forward to seeing you back here on the No BS Real Estate Podcast next time. Thanks for tuning in. See you later.